Hey, what is up, everybody? This is the Four Pillar Podcast, and with me, Ian Lashley, and Matt Gottemeyer, we have a special guest today. His name's Nick Drossos. He is a super awesome guy. I've got to spend a day with him already doing a seminar. He has some really, really cool stuff. He's a self-defense and fitness expert. He has probably the number one place for self-defense and fitness. I'd say self-defense for sure content on YouTube. And he was featured on the Men's Health magazine, Global News, Breakfast Television, the TBS News, and he has a lot of awesome stuff. We're super excited to have him today. So, Nick, do you have anything you want to share before we get started?
Thank you very much for having me here. It's been an honor to meet you guys, train with you guys, make videos with you guys. To me, it's always really important that when I meet people and I collaborate with people, the first thing is before what they do or what they teach is who they are as people. To me is the number one most important thing. So I've been really happy to be here for 2 days and get to meet you guys and train with you guys. So it's been an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming down. And that's what we're going to get into too today. The reason we call it the Four Pillar Podcast, it stands for faith, family, fitness, and finance. And we believe that kind of governs your moral decisions, or kind of how you should conduct your life, because all those things are very, very important and play into that. So the first thing I guess I wanted to ask you is, well, how did you get into the fitness and self-defense training? What was your background on that, or what influenced you to want to take that path?
Well, when I was 11 or 12, I grew up in Park X, which was, one of the poorest neighborhoods in Canada. And, coming from immigrant parents, my parents didn't speak any English or French, just Greek. From a young age, I had to learn how to survive. When I would go out in the street, when I would leave my house, I had to look both sides before I actually, decided to walk out. Right. So from a young age, I had to learn how to defend myself. I had to learn how to fight. It wasn't a time where, you go to your parents, oh, Mom, I got into a fight. It was they were never home. They always worked and they didn't have time really to take care of us. So me and my sister had to take care of ourselves from a young age. And then I remember I got my ass kicked in the street. And then I wanted to do Kung Fu and my parents couldn't afford it. And I freaking cried for months. I smashed, I was just a brat, which I wasn't, but I really wanted to do Kung Fu. And then finally my dad said, fine, couldn't afford it, but he goes, I'll put you to this Kung Fu thing, but you better be serious about it. And ever since after that, my life was just martial arts, self-defense, and fighting. Now, put in the ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, getting kicked out of school at grade 9, growing up in a dysfunctional home. I had all those odds against me. And the only thing I saw that I was good at and I loved was martial arts and self-defense and fitness. It was the only thing that kept me grounded. And I basically just took that and I said, you know what? This is what I'm good at. This is what I love to do. And I just kept going with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of the same thing like me. I struggled with, I think with confidence, a lot of other things too, when I was a kid, and some bullying and stuff like that. And that's where obviously my dad's done martial arts for a long time. That's where he kind of put me down that path as well too, to get into doing, jiu-jitsu, karate, and all that kind of stuff. And it helped me immensely with my life, just with confidence, and started to work out stuff at a young age, and just all that stuff just helped me deal with. That's what it helps you deal with. Helps you deal with life.
For sure. There's something very powerful about this, and people underestimate, take my son's 14, and he's had a very different life than what I had, and he knows it, right? We kind of compensate with the opposite sometimes. I spoil him. I spoil him with love, which is good. Right. That's fine. But I also sometimes I used to have that tendency of giving him everything I didn't. Now I had to kind of pull back, because you're okay, I don't want to create the opposite effect. Right. But from a young age, he was doing jiu-jitsu at 5. He was doing MMA. He was doing. I've taught him everything, and I some of it was me, but a lot of times I'll get other coaches to train him as well, because I don't want him to be bullied and picked on. And so far from what I hear at school, he's like, Dad, nobody ever bullies me. Nobody picks on me. And when you build that confidence from young, it's going to carry through everything you do in your life. And that's why I think it's so important.
Let me ask you this, because I think Matt and I both kind of get this question sometimes. The parents will come in and say, well, why should I put my kid in martial arts or something that's teaching them violence,
Oh.
right? That's I mean that's I mean we get to we get that question. I think that's BS, right? Disagree with that, but what's your thoughts on that when someone says that to you?
Well, I say it depends how you see it. You see it as violence or defending yourself, right? There's a thin line between self-defense and violence, right? So to me, I've and I'll just tell you what I've told my son. Maybe some people wouldn't agree, but I've told my son that if people bully you with words, you don't have the right to touch them. You could tell them, you diffuse it, de-escalate it, and if you get pissed off, you tell them, look, fuck off, like don't touch me, stop doing what you're doing, I'm getting annoyed. But the moment he puts his hands on you, the moment he grabs you, touches you, pushes you, I go, you better defend yourself, or else I'm going to be pissed off. Right. And I made that very clear because that mindset, I don't want to promote that mindset. And here's the thing: if we took kids at a young age, right, and you like, I'm Spartan descent, like there was a reason why all the boys learned martial arts. There's pancreation. There's a reason why they all got training. And whether it's boys or girls, the same thing. If I had a girl, she would be trained to the T, like no difference than if I had a boy. But if you educated these kids in self-defense, more fitness every day in school, guess what? You'd have a lot less bullying. And where bullying would be there, other kids would come and defend the kids who wouldn't.
Right.
So, I mean, it depends on how parents see it, but I get it. If they don't know, they don't know. So it's up to us to educate them and show them or tell them the difference.
Well, if you went back to the moment when you were a kid and you got jumped, your feeling probably wasn't, well, I want to go around and start beating people up. Your feeling was, that's never going to happen to me again. Yeah. Right.
And it's what bothered me about that is that I didn't fight back. Right. I kind of let myself go, where today the mindset that I try to teach my son, even when I teach self-defense, is, and it's proven, women who've been attacked, who fought back versus the ones who didn't fight back. The ones who fought back, and I did a seminar with a woman who was beaten almost to death and sent to the hospital, but the guy she fought with was in the hospital as well. She told me, she's like, Nick, she showed me a picture. I did everything I could. I gave him a fight. I couldn't, but she told me, she goes, I'm proud of myself. At least I gave the guy a fight. Versus the woman who never fights back, and I've trained them, they live with this, I should have, I could have, why didn't I do anything? That the recovery is much longer and sometimes never even takes place at 100% because they said, why didn't I at least do something?
Right.
So that's the mindset I tell people. You're attacked with a knife, right? I tell people know there's nothing you could do. Okay, great. So just if you get attacked, go on the floor and say there's nothing you could do. Or you could attempt to trap, to fight back, to use an improvised weapon, to do something. But at the end, it's your life. You do what you want to do. I can't tell you what to do.
Yeah.
So that's the way I kind of see it in terms of the mindset.
Yeah, and I have the same mindset as well too. I liked what you said yesterday when you were teaching the seminar. You said, you may not win every time, but they're going to remember who you are if they attacked you. You said they're going down with you.
Yeah,
yeah. I love that mindset. I think it's the correct thing to. I think it's the right way to go about it. Like, right? Why should you just lay down and roll over? I mean, that's not.
Look, and I tell people, if that's what you want to do, hey, it's your life. I'm not fighting your fight.
Right.
I can't tell you. I'm giving you the tools, because at the end, it's what are you willing to fight and die for?
Yeah.
You could only decide, is your life worth that? Maybe you'll tell me, and I've seen this with women, and I've been like, oh, how many women could defend themselves here? And half the women will say yes, the other half will say no. I'll split them apart. I go, well, first, you half could and you half can't. If you believe you can't or cannot, it starts with that.
Oh, absolutely.
Then I'll tell the women, how many have kids here? Half the women. What if you walked in and you saw somebody harming your kids? Oh, I'm going to rip him apart. I'm going to destroy him. Oh, now that mama bear is coming out. So you're not willing to fight for your own self, but you are willing to fight to protect your child. So that it's there. It's just what's going to trigger that response.
Right. What's so getting into like self defense
Yeah.
now? What are like some basic tips and stuff you have for like self defense that? Now obviously, right, we're doing a podcast, so you can't,
Yeah.
Ricky just can't show a bunch of stuff right now.
Yeah.
But just what are some things that you can just say
Man,
to give some basic tips?
You know, I always start everything, and I mean, I did 10 years of security, and I say the number one thing that saved my ass is just awareness. Be aware of your surroundings, right? Your situational awareness, which is 15, 20 feet of everything that's around you. And be aware when somebody is, 3 to 5 feet, body awareness. First thing, look at their hands. Does he have a weapon? Is he angling off or trying to get close? What are the cues and signs? What are you looking at prior to the attack? Is being able to pick up on those will determine how fast you'll be able to intercept an attack or go preemptive. So your awareness is your number one most important thing. And then learning how to de-escalate, how to diffuse, how to manage your space and distance. Because if somebody's going to attack you, well, they're going to have to get to a certain amount of feet before they do. And I would say, how did they get to 3 to 5 feet?
Right.
At what point didn't you see the hands? At what point did they pull out the weapon? So there's 5 steps prior to the attack. So where were you in those moments?
Right. And I have a question that goes along with that as well. And we get, my dad and I were doing self-defense stuff. We get asked this all the time. For example, like, okay, you show us all this stuff, the awareness, everything. So what happens if I'm hogtied, they put me in a freezer chest, and I have 4 people pointing guns at me? How do I escape that scenario?
I get the stupidest shit. Not as bad, but obviously it's an exaggeration.
Right, I exaggerated.
So I'll give you a great rebuttal that you guys could use.
Yeah,
because I get this all the time. I've been on social media for 10 years on YouTube.
Right.
What if the guy had 5 knives and there were 5 guys? No, so guys. What if they're 5 and they each have 2 knives? My question is always this: are you training for possibilities or probabilities?
Right.
It's possible 5 guys with 2 knives attack me. It's possible. I can't say no. Everything's possible.
Right.
Is it probable? No.
Yeah, probably.
So what are you training for? Is it probable that 2 guys attack me, one with a weapon? Very probable. Is it possible I get jumped by 3 guys? Very probable. Is it possible that there's 10 guys, one each holding a knife and a gun? Very, very improbable. So I always separate it that way because it's just, to me, it's got to be logical as well.
Right. Do you have a specific way you get out of that scenario though I just gave you?
Shit, I don't know. We'd have to pressure test it.
How important is the physical training, strength training to go along with what you do?
So important, guys. It's your engine, right? I tell people it's your engine, and we're doing knife defense. You need to have a tight grip. If you don't train your grip to be solid, well, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I always say put as much as you can in your favor, right? Have the power, the explosive power, the timing, the speed, eye-hand coordination, work your explosive power, your grip strength, your power punching, everything comes into play. Like, it doesn't mean that somebody who doesn't do it cannot defend themselves. They probably could pull something off really quick and throw a palm strike, evade and escape and run, because at the end, that's what we're teaching is survival. But, the more you have in your favor, the better.
Well, I mean potentially, I mean, right? If you have, a person that is, 300 some pounds, for a 400-pound lady or whatever, I mean, she's not going to have the mobility, she's, all that stuff's not going to be there for her to,
for sure. Like, I mean,
anything like that.
I mean, we're looking at what he grabs her and she just yells and screams and, palm strikes him and maybe finger jabs him or does something. And I mean, she could probably pull off something as gross motor and simple as that.
Right.
Just like a few seconds strike and get out. And even then, but I mean, I always say, like, put as much as you can in your favor, especially like if you work in security, if it's part of your job, if you need all that. I mean,
and do you believe as well too? Something I think Matt and I think as well is, like, right, if you're in a better shape, you're going to handle that adrenaline, right? Because I mean, working out and stuff like that, you're dealing with stress and anxiety and stuff with that. So, right, it gives you kind of like to be able to handle that adrenaline dump. 'Cause, I mean, that's one of the things, like, a lot of people don't realize this. Like, I mean, we've both done, jiu-jitsu tournaments and stuff like that, man. I mean, like, first time I remember I ever did a jiu-jitsu tournament or a wrestling tournament was with my dad or whatever, man. I'm like, right. I mean, like it brings out your adrenaline. You get stressed. You get anxious about stuff. And I mean, that simulates pretty cool. And that's not even comparable to where someone's now jumping me and has a knife and says, yeah, and give me your wallet. Like that's nowhere even comparable.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, how do you rank like the training you guys were doing yesterday, strength training, conditioning? How would you?
What do you mean? How do I rank it?
Well, do you say they're all equally important? Would you say?
I
mean, because I asked you about strength training,
yeah,
but your conditioning. If you've never done martial arts, it
I would like it. It depends. It really depends on what your overall objective is and goal and what you're training for, right? Because we had that who's 70 years old, right? Like he's still coming to train. So how can I teach him self-defense at 70 years old? I don't want to tell him, well, you're not in physical top shape to do it, right? And I've trained people who are older. It's like, okay, how can we work with what you have? So it depends on what you're training, your level. And it also depends on, I mean, again, where you're at in terms of your physical ability. But if you're, let's say, I'll take me for an example, kind of like when I was working security, for 10 years, my prime, which was like 10 years ago or whatever it was, it was to me equally as important. I needed the strength of, like, I'm 170. When I'm kicking out a guy who's 220, 230, 240, you better believe I better know how to transfer weight. I better know how to have good footwork. I got to be fast because I could rely on my strength so much against a guy who's that big. So, I mean, it was part of, I equally saw it as 50-50, having the strength, the conditioning, the power to be able to deliver what I'm teaching. Because it's kind of like you have all these tools, but you don't have the gas to fucking execute them properly.
Yeah. Before we get into a little bit of business stuff here, because we were talking before the podcast, I really want to get into some of that. But as long as you don't care to share this, what is the craziest kind of story or experience that you had take away from your years of bouncing and stuff like that? If you don't care to share it, obviously.
Wow, there's been a few.
Or even maybe something, the most thing you learned from it as well, too, if there's, or whatever, however you want to spin that.
We at one point we kicked out a guy, and we roughed him up a little bit. Well, not me, the other guy, because they thought he was a nobody.
Yeah.
And they roughed him up, they kicked him out, and on the way out he looks at me, goes, "I'm gonna come back for you guys."
Oh jeez.
And I'm like, okay, another fucking guy, you know who I am, right? He goes, "I'll come back." He goes, "I'm gonna remember you," because he goes, "You were nice to me." I'm like, okay, because the other guys were a little bit of bullies, right?
Yeah.
They got away with the people they could.
Right.
Next thing you know, I see this black Mercedes pull up. I see this, Mustang with two guys come out. I still remember the convertible. Guy comes in like fucking like a brick wall. Takes off his shirt. I see like fucking skeleton heads and shit like that. He's like, I still remember. He goes, "Get me the biggest guy in here." I'm like, "Sir, there's a dress code." He goes, "Go get me the biggest guy in here." I'm like, fuck. I'm like, okay. And there's another car. I don't know how many they are. I go downstairs. I see that two guys. I said, "Look, there's two guys there. There's a car there." I go, "We got two options. Option number one, we go upstairs. We talk to him nicely. We draw him in. Once we draw him in, I lock the door. We fucking have to waste him right away. We can't waste time. He's a big guy, but I want to make sure we get him inside, lock the door so nobody else could come in." Or I go, we could, call the cops. So he calls the cops. The cops come. The head of the homicide in Montreal comes. He comes downstairs. He goes, "What the fuck did you guys do?" He goes, "Don't move." He comes upstairs. Yeah, I comes upstairs. Make a long story short, the guy comes out. He was somebody who was very, very highly connected that we didn't know. We had to apologize to him. "We're very sorry. I'm sorry." Shake his hand. And I remember the guy, the officer told me, anybody else would have told me, so I would say, "Yeah, whatever." But coming from him, he told me, he goes, I remember I was maybe 27 or 28 actually at the time. He goes, "Kid, I know you know how to fight. You know your self-defense and your martial arts stuff. But these guys are killers. He goes, he would have put a bullet in your head, sat right here, had a coffee like nothing happened.
Oh,
He
wow.
goes, if you would have touched him, he would have blown up a building just to kill you. I was like, oh fuck. He goes, you guys don't know how lucky you came. So I had times like this where I had to assess and I had to learn how to scan people fast. Like read people, read body language, look at the thread. Is it serious? Is it not serious? And sometimes, yeah, it's just
Right, because if you guys would have made the other decision and tried to
Yeah.
waste that dude, that could have been real bad.
honestly, I really think I wouldn't be here. Based on what he told me and coming from that source, anybody else I would have been like, yeah, go fuck yourself, whatever.
Right.
Coming from him, I was like, oh shit. Like for us to have to apologize in front of the law enforcement, like we're really sorry to the guy. You know what I mean? We're shaking his hand. Yeah, I was like, oh shit. You know what I mean? So I mean, to me, that what I learned about that is one, like don't take. That's why I learned to take every threat seriously. Like a lot of times I would get threatened, I'll come back, I'm going to shoot you. And when I would leave the club at night, a lot of times when we had a rough night, we'd leave together as a group,
Right.
try to like watch each other's back. And when I would have to leave alone, I knew exactly where I was walking, where the lights were. I would position myself in certain areas just to make sure that if anybody tried to jump me, I was always prepared.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, there's a lot of fights, quote unquote, from, throwing out the drunk kid who's not dangerous to guys who really, swung at me. And I've seen 4 or 5 stabbings happen. I had a kid die in front of me because he got stabbed. I've been shot at. That was a stupid thing too. There was a fight, and I'm like, oh shit, there's a big fight in front of the club. It was like after the club, and like bozo, I'm like, wow, let me go check it out. Right? Because
Right.
I would see fights sometimes. I would look at them, oh man, shit, like, oh fuck, oh no, I would do that move. Oh damn, like, and the fight's there, and I'm looking at them like, wow, okay, wow. And next thing you know, they start shooting, and I'm running, and there's another like 7, 8 gang members behind me, and we kind of like, I jumped in the lane, they jumped behind me. I'm like, I'm sitting there with these guys. I'm like, how the fuck did I end up here? So now I tell people, guys, when you see a fight, yeah, go home.
Just go
check
home.
it out.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing, you know what I mean? Don't stick around at 2 a.m. and try to figure out what's happening.
Right. That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't drag us on here too long. I want to get
Yeah.
into some business stuff
Yeah.
here. Because obviously, how did you get started your business? I mean, you've grown your business. You almost have 500K subscribers on YouTube, which is, I mean, that's a humongous accomplishment.
Yeah.
You have a lot of following on on Instagram and Facebook. So, from ground zero, what is the biggest thing you did to scale your business or get where you're at today?
Man, so it's funny, when YouTube started, like I didn't even know what YouTube was. So I decided to like make videos just for fun, not knowing. When YouTube came out was in 2006 or 7, and I started my channel in 2009.
Mhm.
I knew nothing about social media. It didn't even exist back then other than YouTube. And I just started making videos. And then one video went viral, which got like 7,000 hits. And I was like, wow, this thing, and then I just started making videos consistently. And then as the platform grew, I followed the platform, and then Facebook came out and Instagram came out. And then I started spreading to those platforms. And the key is just consistency, is being constant with bringing out content every week and not missing a week, and trying to make it, staying authentic to who you are, keeping it into a specific niche. And I tried to venture off some things, and then I realized it didn't go well for me when I did that. And I was like, people know me as a self-defense guy, stick with the self-defense stuff.
Right.
And it was just consistency.
What and I hear a lot of experts or people say hey, you should take all the like there's tons of social media channels and platforms. You should go and post on all these channels, because the more you do it, the better. All that stuff. And I have other people that say focus on, maybe pick 2 or 3 of them, 2 or 3 ones that you like that are popular. Focus on those 3, and then get really good at those 3, and then screw the rest of them. What's your opinion on that?
I agree. The first thing you got to look at, okay, what's my business, and what is the best platform that represents my business? So I basically work YouTube. YouTube is king. So YouTube,
Absolutely.
Instagram, Facebook and Instagram, and I could probably say those are the two. I am working LinkedIn a little bit as well.
Yeah.
I have TikTok, but I don't stress with TikTok. Whenever I have something, I just post it. But I'd rather work 2-3 platforms, and the ones that I believe convert the most into views or sales or whatever it is,
Right.
and work those 2-3 platforms and be consistent on those. But more importantly, know that your platform doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the social media.
Right.
At any point, you could have 100,000 followers and lose them tomorrow. So unless you have them on your mailing list, you have nothing but numbers that are useless. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to ask
Yeah.
you too. The biggest thing that I guess I've learned over the years is kind of like what you're saying is like, they're not really your customers yet,
No.
or your people. So, what was the thing that you would recommend to do to try to get people on your mailing list, or obviously, to generate
but
that?
that's why you got to offer a free course, a free ebook, something. Once you're in your mailing list, now they're your customers. So, because the problem is, even when you have 100,000 followers, there's only a small percentage that get that.
Right.
So it's, I kind of compare it like you have, a store full of people with no money, right? Nobody's watching you. Nobody's buying anything. Nobody's, so to me, it's kind of like I rather have a smaller amount of active listeners and viewers than a large amount who don't. And
Right.
I'd rather have them under my platform where I could connect with them personally the way I want to than depending on the other platforms to be able to reach out to them.
Right. What is what is your favorite platform to use right now? Do you think? I know you said YouTube, but
I would
with YouTube too, do you prefer, what's your idea on content as well too? Like some people, obviously, like when I watch a YouTube video, right, I usually don't watch the YouTube video that's 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
Right. If it's, between 2 and like 7 minutes, those are the ones I prefer to watch, especially if I'm looking up how to do something, or if I'm Googling jiu-jitsu moves or whatever, like the dude that shows how to do the arm bar in 3 minutes, like that's more attractive than this guy that's showing how to do an arm bar in 40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, but so that's the thing. Like, I mean, what I find, first of all, on YouTube right now, it's just shorts. That's all people are watching. And I find that even though you can't monetize it, it's still like I did a video 2 months ago and I got 1.1 million views.
Wow.
But that's why I have my courses online. I promote my courses online. So whether I make money, like what YouTube's going to give you is peanuts comparing to what you could build a course and sell it online.
Right.
So I don't depend on it anymore financially to help me make money like I used to. Like I'll tell you, I used to make $2,000 to $4,000 a month off YouTube.
Off the advertising
after
stuff,
the ads.
No,
I make between 300 and 600 because they changed their algorithm.
Right.
What am I going to call YouTube? Oh, why are you doing this to me? It's not fair. It's their platform. They do what they want.
Right.
So I don't depend on them anymore. I just make content, but then I bring them to my website. I bring them to my courses. Then I don't depend on them to build my business anymore from the ads perspective.
Yeah. And the other thing we were kind of talking about too, we talked about clickbait. What's your opinion on clickbait things?
I mean, I don't try to clickbait. Clickbait is for YouTubers, I believe, that are trying to like sell anything and they're doing anything for views, and it won't represent what I want as and the clientele I want to like try to attract.
Right. It's kind of like the delayed gratification of this too, right? I mean, it could be good right now, but then how's this going to affect your following in 5 years, 10 years from now? And it could be
because when I train law enforcement and they're going to Google my name, do I want them to see something stupid I did?
How Nick Drossos makes a pancake or something like
that? You don't like. I mean, that's the thing, and that's what I learned over the years. Because at one point I did do a little bit of clickbait because I was told, "Oh, Nick, you should do more clickbait," and I was like. And I did it, and I said, you know what? I'm selling myself short. I'm not going to do it anymore. And I wasn't proud of what I did to the point that I made some of them private. I'm like, no, I'm going to stick to what I know. I'm going to stick to what I love. I'm going to promote myself properly and well and attract, because whatever you put out there is what you're going to attract. And somebody told me that. And I didn't get it because I was too young. But now I'm aware, Nick, whatever you post, this is what you're going to attract. And who do you want to attract based on what you put out? Do I want like the 16-year-old kid who's like, no, I don't. Like, I don't mind if he's learning self-defense, but I want to attract serious people who want to learn like self-defense or get tips or whatever it is.
Right. What is the number one? And I think you've already kind of said this maybe, but as far as consistency, which I think is huge. We talk about fitness, self-defense, like consistency is huge in life, but what is your number one business advice you'd give to somebody, just whatever that could be. It could be like how to handle financials or how to grow the business. Like what is your number one advice?
I think that you have to set a plan. You have to set a plan with timelines and goals, and you have to stick to them. And when the numbers are still not there, you have to stay the course, because it takes time to do something and build it properly. So you might be posting a video a week on YouTube and get 10 viewers for a year. But on the 400th day, pop, one of your videos just goes viral, and suddenly you went from 100 subscribers to 10,000, from 10,000 to 100, just because you stayed the course on it. And stay true to who you are and what you do, and be as authentic as you can when you're teaching. Be real. Don't try to sell yourself short. Don't put any clickbait shenanigans, just do what you do and be consistent with it. And when the numbers are not there, or when you feel, is this worth it? I'm not getting enough listeners. Should I quit? No, you just keep doing it and get better as you're doing it.
Now, depending on too, like diversifying your business, what is your opinion on this as far as, should you stay locked in on one thing? Because like I've heard also just like multiple ways, right? You can diversify and like do all these things, but I've heard also, which is kind of like what I've tried to honed in on doing, is right. You pick your niche or your thing that you're good at, and you focus on growing that until you get to a certain point, and then you can expand after you hit that. Or like, what's your?
I did a little bit of both, right? And like in terms of my self-defense, it's a niche market, right? I've built that, but it wasn't enough for me, which I have I have my personal training studio. So I do 30, 40 hours a week. Right. From there, I did it because that's consistent, like cash flow, if you want to call it.
Right.
Then I built my online courses, which are related to my self-defense. Then I took my self-defense and I have my seminars. Within the self-defense, I've created little different sources of revenue within my social media and then my personal training, because I look at it like you need to create different sources of revenue. Because if I call it like turbines, if one crashes, you're still making money other places.
Right.
So you can't, you could zero in on a specific niche, but doesn't mean you can't have other sources of revenue while you're building that as well. As long as they're all in the fitness, whether it's self-defense, fitness, it's, nutrition, you're still in the health and wellness thing. As long as you're not telling me, well, I'm going to go do real estate, then you're completely throwing me off track with what you're doing. But if you're within the health and fitness, no matter what you're doing, self-defense, BJJ, whatever it is, I understand why you're doing it. It's all in the same.
It's all in the same category.
Same category.
Yeah. The last couple of things I want to ask you here too is this has to do with the family as well. So what's your thoughts, advice, or things that you've learned over the years from trying to have have family business on all that stuff?
You know what? That's the hardest thing to manage, right?
Oh, 100% it is. I've experienced
it's the hardest thing to manage, and the most important thing I could tell you is having the right partner. And I know what it is. I've had partners that were not supportive. When I work 12 hours a day and I'm like, oh, you're always working, you're never home. It's like, well, why do you think I'm working? Do you think I want to do 12 hours every day? No, sometimes I might want to do 8 and come home and spend time with my son. But unfortunately, we also need a certain lifestyle, what I mean, that you want. You want to travel every year, you want this, you want the house, it takes money to do this. So I do have to work, and you need a partner. And it's the biggest game changer to me is when you have the right partner. And today I have the right partner, is that everything I do is accelerated because she's there behind me. She supports me. I've never heard you work too much or never home or whatever it is. She's actually knows that I'm here, I'm hustling, I'm working. You know what I mean? You need a partner who's going to be there to support you. And I get it. Sometimes it's not easy, but then you need to find time where you're like, okay, you know what? Once a week or this many hours, we're going to take this time for us to disconnect. If you have a kid, you bring it to the grandfather, where we're going to take some time to ourselves.
Right.
And it's trying to find that balance as much as possible. But I mean, having the right partner obviously is is going to be the biggest game changer in terms of your success.
Yeah, and it does. Not. I think no matter what anybody says, it comes down to sacrifice. I mean, if you want to do anything extravagant in life or do something amazing, it takes sacrifice on all planes of your life. I believe or think anyway.
Yeah, at some point you're going to have to cut on something. Like I'm not even kidding you. I work 12 hours a day. Literally 12 hours a day. Because I do my personal training and then I do my online stuff. And then I train between my schedule. If you come to my board, like, cause I have a board, you'll freak out. Everything is clocked from the time I eat, the time I have my coffee, the time I have this. It's calculated, everything. And then once I'm done, then I do my online stuff and I go to bed at the same time. But I'm blessed because I love what I do. I love what I do. That's the biggest thing, right? If I hated it, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
Even though sometimes you might get overwhelmed. So like, your time management and then is important and all that. And when you have the right partner, it's kind of like putting all that in there together. And obviously you want to put time for your kid and for your family, but there's only so much you could do as long as you have a plan and you're just not doing it and saying, well, I don't know how long it's going to be like this. Well, my plan is in 10 years, I could start cutting here. Or my plan next is I'm going to hire more people and I could take some time off, but I'm working towards it. But it's just, I'm not there yet.
Right. Yeah. 'Cause it takes time to get there.
Yeah, it takes time.
All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share, or Matt? Do you have anything, Matt?
Well, before we went, I just didn't know if you wanted to talk about what your online business is.
Oh yeah. So what I did, and I think, right now we have this amazing platform, right? This whole online platform. And what I did is I took some of my courses because a lot of people wanted to train with me. I took some of my courses and I created online courses. And then people like my knife defense is like over 50 lessons. I've broken them down with all the drills that we did here. And then people who can't train with me, well, they could buy the course online. They can watch it. There's an exam, a certification. So I put all these together, which is cool because it allows me to create a different source of revenue. It allows me to, make money even while I'm here, to still be able to make money and still sustain other parts of my business, and allows me to travel. Because at the end, I tell people, what's your why? My biggest why is that I want to move, right? I want to go live back in Greece. I want to move in Greece. And that's why I'm doing everything online. And I have a 5 to 10 year plan that I could go there. And then all I want is my laptop, good Wi-Fi, and I can run my business. But that's why I say the importance of your why and your plan, and then align yourself towards that. But you've got to have clarity through that as well.
Yeah,
What does that look like for the student versus coming into a gym like we have? Do they need a training partner?
In some of them, they need training partners, and others they don't. I always give people the option of how they could do it. Obviously, live is always better, but when you have somebody in, I don't know, Indonesia or in the UK who, there's a knife, people are stabbing each other left and right, and there's a crisis there, and people tell me, "Oh, can you come to UK?" I said, "No, I have a course you could watch. There's drills, you could practice them, you could learn. You're still going to pick up things of what you can and cannot do. So it's better than nothing for now." And, and we're lucky now because we could do this stuff online, and they're still going to get a lot of stuff just doing it through online as well.
Absolutely. So where can they find you? Where can people follow you and all that good stuff?
Well, they could visit my website, nickdrossos.com. They could check me out on YouTube as well, Nick Drossos Coaching on Instagram, even on LinkedIn, and that's pretty much all my platforms.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you again for coming in, Nick. And
thank you guys.
It was super awesome. All the stuff we talked about was very good, and just thank you for sharing your experiences, and hopefully someone else can take that. I like to try to learn from other people and take the experience and grow from it. So I hope someone else listens to us can do the same. So thank you for sharing all that.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show.